All right, here we go. Part two for our Excel and our stock portfolio. Where we left off last time is we kind of just set everything up. Nothing too complicated, just the titles of our columns, how to input normal data. And then also we did do one function or equation, and I showed you how to copy that down. Also, we went over the sum function, in which it adds up a range of cells within the function. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and update and see how our stocks have done since we last did this, which was 2 days ago. And then we are going to go over some formatting of the cells in Excel. All right. So the first thing we're going to want to do is finish our columns here, because remember, we purchased these stocks back on the 22nd. So this is our purchase price. We want to see what they currently are today so we can see if we've gained or lost any money on our investment. All right. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and fill the rest of these out. So like we said, we got the purchase price, number of shares, initial costs. Then we're going to add a new column called current, which is what the stock price is currently today. And to easily find that out, we're going to use these ticker symbols to go ahead and find that out. So we're going to go to google.com/finance and just type in AAPL. And Apple, again, big black number right here is the current price. So it's at 140.92. Per share, let's go and look up Microsoft MSFT. Again, the current price is right here, 64.87. And then Tesla, TSLA, 254.78. So just from like viewing the difference between the one share price when we purchased it and when we it's current today, it looks like all three of our stocks have actually gone up. Thing we want to do is, since this is how much it's gone up one share, well, we didn't buy just one share, we bought 20, 180 of them. So what we need to go ahead and do is find our current value of all of our shares. And the current value, just like here, is if we were checking out, and this is our total cost for 20 shares of Apple, 100 shares of Microsoft, and all that. Current value is what is the value of all of our stocks today, right now, and what would we have gotten back if we were to actually sell our stocks? Well, if it's currently at 140, well, how much is 20 shares if it was at 140? How much is 100 shares if they were at 64? So it's basically going to be the exact same function and formula as it was for the initial cost, except in this case, you're going to use the current price. So you're going to hit the equal sign, and we're going to use cell referencing. Again, we're not putting in numbers. We're going to be using whatever's in the cell to find out this answer. So we're going to click current price, multiply it by the number of shares, and hit enter. And then again, since this is using cell referencing, we're just going to grab this little box in the bottom right-hand corner and drag down. Notice when you do that, cell referencing takes over and it goes ahead and just fills in the formula row by row with it. The next column we're going to want to figure out is our gain or loss. And gain or loss is simply this. You're going to compare what it's worth today compared to what you spent back then. So with that being said, we're going to use cell referencing again. We're going to take what it's worth today, and we're going to subtract out what we spent when we first purchased it. And if our current value is greater than our initial cost, we're going to have a gain. If our initial cost is greater than our current value, we're going to have a loss. We're going to go ahead and drag that down. All right, last thing we want to go ahead and do is our yield. And an easy way to kind of think of yield is how hard your money is working for you. Basically, it is your gain or loss compared to what you started with. It's an easy way to make all stocks comparable and put on like a common denominator. With that being said, I mean, like you could easily see $328 as a pretty good gain, but maybe you had to put a lot of money into that stock in order to get that $328, as opposed to this $66 gain, which maybe you only had to put, say, a couple bucks into. So again, it's going to be how much you've gained or lost compared to where you started with, to see how, how hard, I guess, your money is working for you. So in order to do that, there's a couple ways. There's actually 3 ways to do yield. We're going to do the one that I showed in class first. All right, you're going to start off with an equal sign in parentheses because we need to find our gain or loss. Yes, I know there's a column here. I'll show you that way here in a second. First, we're going to go ahead and just like we found gain or loss, we're going to take our current value, subtract out our initial cost. And then, like I said, we need to compare it to where we began, which would be the initial cost again. All right, and again, this is going to be a long decimal, but you're going to turn it into a percent. And we'll get to that here in a second once I fill the rest of these out. And I'm just going to drag it on down. All right, now, now that we've got pretty much everything there, because this right here is the number we're going to be looking at as a class to see how well you've been investing. All right, so right now we're going to go and talk about just really simply how to format a lot of this here. So for instance, this is dollars, 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 and percent. We're going to go ahead and go with that. Very simply, in order to go ahead and turn all this into dollars and percents, you're just going to make a range or a selection with your mouse. Go up to the home tab, number group, and there's a dollar sign right there. Simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the rest of these here. This is a dollar. All that is dollars as well. And then probably if you notice, the percent sign's right next to it. So I'm going to grab our yield, hit percent. Now, obviously, I mean, again, this isn't 1%. This is actually 0.77%. This one down here is 1.6%. So it's always in good habit to always go to 2 decimal places. And you're going to do that with this these two commands right here inside, which is increased decimal and decreased decimal. All right, so as you can see, these are our yields. In fact, Tesla has yielded us the most compared to how much money we've put towards it. So we'll see how that looks the next time we check in when I show you how to do graphs. The next thing I kind of want to go ahead and do is just show you the other 2 ways that you could do yield. Notice when we did yield, we did, how to calculate gain or loss from here to here and then divided by initial cost. The one thing you got to keep in mind is when you do yield, you have to keep the same, I guess you could say, denominator or the same concept in mind here. Current value is the current value of your Apple shares in total, meaning all 20 shares. This is your initial cost of all 20 shares. You could do it by comparing 1 share to 1 share, but you'd have to keep it comparable. So if I were to take our current price of 1 share and subtract out the purchase price of 1 share, and then compare it back to where we started, you're going to get the exact same answer. All right, and then obviously the last way to do it is you just click your gain or loss column. Now again, this is the gain or loss of 20 shares. So when you compare your gain or loss, you compare it back to your initial cost of 20 shares. And then again, notice it is the exact same answers. So there's 3 ways you can use yield or calculate yield in this. All right, again, so real quick, just because I know this is on the test, when you're using yield or calculating yield, you have to calculate your gain or loss, how much money your investment made or lost compared to where you started at. All right, the last thing I want to do today is just go ahead and go over kind of how to format the look of a cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these columns right here and we're going to format them to a way we want them to look. One way you can do it is kind of use some of the built-in ones that were given to you. Under the home tab, under style, you got cell style. And all of these are kind of like built in. As you could see, you got titles and headings, the default styles you can use. Other than that, though, an easy way to go ahead is just go ahead and right click, go down to format cells. We lost 2-1. I know, brutal. Yeah, so, oh well. It was a good game, though. They played pretty good. All right, so once you right-click and go to Format Cells, you're going to get an option to customize this to any way you want. The first tab that you see here is Numbers. This is what do you want the data inside the cell to be represented as, a number, currency, counting, or something like that. So what you're going to want to do just to adjust the types of these is you're going to want to go ahead and concentrate on these 3 right here, the alignment, the font, and the border. The alignment The only really thing that's kind of good enough here for to really pay attention to that's different than anything else you can't do outside of format cell is just how do you want to rotate or like present the text. So you could do this here. I'll show you real quick. I just moved this little slider up to 45 degrees. If I hit OK, notice it takes everything inside those cells and rotates it 45 degrees. I'm going to right click, go back to format cell. Font, just like in anything else, you can change your font. There is a example of what font you have right here. I'll just choose, that one looks good. Then you can choose the font size as well. And then the color, we'll go to orange. All right, notice now each font kind of has its own different. Let's go and wrap this size to it, even though it says 12, but I grew mine up to 18. And that one, there we go. Oops. Let's go ahead and go back in there real quick and we'll go over the border and the fill. So go back to format cells. The border, now the border you can choose any type and how you want it to be presented around your cells or your selection of cells. So I'll just choose a thick border, go baby blue. And again, you've got these ones that you can just add to it. Or if you want, you can just click where you want your borders to be. I'm going to choose every cell with a line around it, like so. And then I'm going to go back in, and I'll show you how to do a fill right here. Now you can do just a normal fill, and there's an example of what it's going to look like down here. So if I just did that, it would color in the fill of your columns. However, though, I know a lot of you guys kind of like to be more creative. You can go to fill effects, and bringing up a fill effects will bring up a gradient that you can use for your columns. Now, the one thing I want to warn you about is if you do a fill effect, let me just go ahead and choose two different colors here. If you do a fill effect and use a diagonal, and hopefully this does work so I don't look dumb on here, but when you do that, didn't have to worry about it. Some of the times, and I've seen it a couple on your guys' pages, is it will go ahead and take everything and rotate it on an angle for you, and it's going to look kind of confusing. Don't worry, everything, like I said, if you need to find out what is actually in a cell, look up here, and that will tell you everything that's in the cell. The last thing, I know I said this was the last thing. I just kind of want to go over again a couple of the concepts in Excel before I end this. Cell referencing is using whatever is located in a cell, not the actual numbers itself, to calculate data. So in this case, initial cost, it's not actually 20 times 139.87. It is the value of what's in those cells that's producing this. So if I were to ever change number of shares, 67, this will change. All right. Next thing I want you to take note of is that when you do now adjust something, here, we'll actually buy one more so you can kind of see how everything's going to be connected. I'm just going to copy down this formula so you guys can see how everything's going to work together. All right. Put in a new date, 3/24/17. And let's go up here. Let's look at, let's see if I have any over here. Let's get one that we all know. There we go. Whoops, Disney. We'll go and use Disney as the next example. Maybe we will. All right, let's go and copy Walt Disney Company. And then let's go ahead and grab its ticker symbol. Purchase price is going to be $112.24. And what I want you to take note of is as I put these numbers in, this initial cost is going to update right there, which is going to update this, which will update this, which will then tell us how much we have remaining. So let's go ahead and purchase 150 shares. When I hit enter, everything's going to snap, even the gain or loss as well. And there you go. Notice now this is said I have now used a total of $46,108. I still have 53,000 roughly, or 54,000 to spend. Current price, you can throw that in right now. Again, you just bought it. The stock market's not open. I can just put it in as 112.24 just because maybe you don't like whatever you see there. I do want to mention this. Whenever you see hashtags in your cell, what that means is you just have a larger number in there that just cannot be represented in the size of the cell that's present. So notice if I hover over, it tells me that's a negative $16,836. If I were to just increase this a little bit more, you'll see that those hashtags go away. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the current price in, which is the 112.24, and you'll see that this changes. This will go back to 0, and the yield will go back to 0, like so. All right, tomorrow what we'll do is I'll go ahead and show you how to represent this data visually, which is another thing Excel does pretty well. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.